All right, we're talking with Jesse Hines. I've known Jesse for a very long time. He works a regular job and has seen a lot of mature bucks get killed over the last half decade or so. And he's talking about some things that have worked, some things that he's learned, and how to make the most out of your season. Let's get right into it. Here we go. We were just talking about food plots and the lack of rain. You guys got a little bit of rain. It missed us here yet again today. How are things looking for you?
Honestly, of course, all of the Midwest has been dry all summer. And then for whatever reason, probably a month ago, maybe, we got like 10 inches of rain in like 3 days. And then now we've been dry since again. And finally today we've got a quarter inch of rain, and it's like God finally blessed us. But Matt and I have been watering one of our food plots with a trash pump that goes in the creek, and probably 400 feet of hose and like a yard sprinkler, and just been rotating it around the plot every couple hours until it's done. So
What you guys had to do that before? Is that something you guys implement when you have to in the summer?
just, yeah, when we have to. We've done it. Unfortunately, the Midwest has been dry the past 3 years. It seems like around July the water just shuts off, so we've had to do it the last three. But it's a necessary evil to get food into these plots. I mean, that we have to have for late season. So
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the key there, because I think there's this ongoing battle, I think, for every whitetail hunter that's trying to get stuff done, but also not trying to pressure their farm. And it's like, personally, I think and this is just me thinking, like, you are wanting to have a good late season spot, and therefore you have to have the food there. And to have the food there, you got to run an irrigator.
right, exactly. And it's not, yeah, exactly. It's not an ideal situation, but luckily where we have it, we really don't have to access a whole bunch of the farm. And we've got, I mean, deer don't seem to really care because you really can't hear the pump from the food plot. I mean, you can a little bit, but we have deer walk by the sprinkler every night on cell cam. I mean, just does and little
Really?
bucks and whatever. They're just curious. They're just checking it out. So it's
Yeah.
something different in there.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get too far into this, take a chance to introduce yourself. I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a long time now, probably longer than what I realize.
Yeah.
Um, a really long time. So it's a pleasure to have you on here and just give folks kind of an idea who you are.
Like Jake said, my name's Jesse Hines. I reside in
Illinois.
Illinois, and what I consider the big buck mecca. I know everybody talks about Iowa, but low key Illinois is still there if you're in the right pockets. But
Yeah.
I try. Everybody in Illinois just wants everybody to keep talking about Iowa, so everybody wants to go there. So, yeah, I was talking to my wife when you text me about doing this podcast, and she's like, Jake Hofer. She's like, I know that name. I was like, so I told her the story of like how we first met, and do you remember, Jake, that you and I first met at ATA show actually,
Yeah.
and you guys went with us, and I think we rotated. It was right before you started working with Exodus. We like one of us. I mean, of course, it was the whole gang was there, but you went along, and we rotated beds. Like one person one night slept in the bed, and the next person slept on the floor, and of course, young 20s, we have no money. And it's like,
Yeah.
let's just pool money together and stay in the same room. So that was fun.
Yeah, for
And the
sure.
friendships grown from there. So
Yeah, for sure. It's really funny. Yeah, we carpooled down to ATA a couple of years, so
yeah,
a lot changes and a lot doesn't. So
exactly.
it's been cool to get to know you and also see kind of your passion for whitetail hunting. And you've whacked some really great deer, and then you've also filmed a lot of deer get shot. And so what? Because hunting, you kind of started hunting later in life, right?
I did. I didn't get. I mean, my mom.
Oh,
Uh,
relative.
yeah, relatively. Yeah, my parent. I didn't get real serious into it when my parents divorced. My mom started seeing a guy that deer hunted, and I'd never really gotten into it, of course, before then. And then I think I was probably 13, and it took me a few years to kill my first deer, and then I was hooked from there. And then it was probably 4 or 5 years later I started bow hunting, and that was a new task. So then I really got hooked after that. I killed my first buck, I think my second year, and it's just been a continual climb from there. But yeah, if I could go back and redo some of the things that I know now that I could have done before, it would be. I think that's everybody's wish, but
Yeah.
boy, my wall would look a heck of a lot different now.
I know. I
But
wish don't live in the past, but it would be fun to relive
exactly,
some seasons with what you know now. But what was I think one of the first years I knew you shot a toad in late
I did.
October.
I did.
What 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 number buck was that for you with your bow?
I don't remember. It wasn't. I probably. I can't even tell you what it was, what number it was, but yeah, I actually that was still when you had your pea
Deer
sense.
pig.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I got lucky and killed that deer. So yeah, it was. But I'm not sure which number of deer it was. I with my bow.
Yeah, that was a giant. But before we get too far into this, how would you describe your hunting style? Because we live in the world of whitetail media. It's like
Right.
there's different attributes to what a hunter is, and I think that's good for the most part because it helps people understand. Okay, this is kind of what you do, so your tactics may work for me, or maybe it's a completely different style, and you still might be able to get some tidbits from it. But how would you describe your hunting style?
Uh, Unorthodox. Uh, I think is the a perfect term. There's times they get aggressive and times to lay back, and there's things that Matt and I do. We aren't afraid to go stand in a brush pile like off the ground, or we're not afraid to go sit in a blind, and freeze our butts off with a heater or hang and bang, have a mobile set up. So definitely unorthodox. I mean, there's not very many people out there that are willing to leave the stand in the truck and go sit in a brush pile or in a hole in the hole in the ground.
Hmm.
And we do
You
that,
quite
and it
yeah.
successfully.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for most tree stand folks, the ground is just. I mean, we walk on the ground every day, all the time. But when you have a bow in your hand and you're deer hunting, it feels like a cat in water at that
It
point
does.
because you're like,
Yeah,
what's going on? I can't see anything. I can't. I guess you can hear, but what do you like hunting from the ground?
I do. I mean, it's a different challenge, and honestly, you get by with a lot more than you think you do. I mean, if you have a good setup, I mean, I'm not going out there and standing with no cover in the middle of a cornfield. I'm not doing that. We're finding terrain or some sort of fallen down tree. We've killed a few deer standing next to like a bunch of trash that a farmer has taken out, like a bunch of scrap metal in the timber. We've used that to hide next to or hide behind. We have that where we don't actually have that farm anymore, but we have that one spot where there's literally uh, it's like a hole in the ground. It's like right next to a creek. It's like the creek may have washed it out eventually at one point, but it's just this big round, probably 4 by 6 area that's eye level with the ground. And Matt and I can climb down in that, and we've killed uh, multiple deer standing in that. So
That's crazy. And when you say you can get away with more than what you think, explain that a little bit. Like in terms of you're a little bit more concealed than what you think, or you can get away with a little
yeah,
bit more movement than what you think.
more. I think people you talk about hunting on the ground, and people just think, well, you can't move. Well, we're doing this with a bow. I mean, we've killed them with a gun in off the ground too, but a lot of these are with a bow, so you have to have movement. And we're doing it at the time. We're still doing it, but we were doing this with two people. So I was filming, or Matt was filming, and we were killing them with a bow. So you have to be able to draw a bow back and shoot it. And we're not doing it with a crossbow or anything like that, but you can move. I mean, the wind's blowing and the grass is blowing and stuff like that. I mean, you have, like I said, you're tucked up in the brush or next to something or in something, not just stand out in the middle of your yard and expecting deer to walk by.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah, I think it's just a hard thing for people to really want to do because we're
yeah,
we're so accustomed to wanting to be in a tree. But
yep, just climb a tree.
yeah, and I assume in some of those locations, is there even trees to climb, or is it just real short, like mulberry hedge, tree line
Uh,
type stuff?
yeah, there is tree. There might be some trees, but you're just better off just staying down. some of the trees are, 3, 4, 5 inches in diameter. Well, you're going to look like a bear hanging off the side of a tree. If you're up in a, any kind of lock on or saddle or anything. So
Mhm.
just taking with what you've got access to. I mean, there are times where we probably could just climb a tree, but at the time we didn't really have mobile setups. We just had, set stands, and that's what we had. And if we had to go move, you know, we just climbed in a brush pile if that's where the deer was walking or whatever.
Right. Yeah. That's how many bucks have you guys killed off the ground? It's quite it's more than a few.
Yeah, it's 9 or 10. So it's not just, getting lucky once in a while. It's consistently doing it. I mean, we've probably done. Matt did it last year again, so it's probably one every year for the past, one or two every year for the past 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. How do you guys get busted often with like does or like satellite bucks or little bucks that come in and check things out and you're like, oh, it is what it is, and you just hang and hang tight, or what's that look like? Because I'm sure that's if someone that's going to go try that this year, they're going to get busted more than likely at some point. And so, how often does that happen to you guys?
Not as often as you would think. I mean, we're still hunting everything correctly with the right wind and stuff. And I know we're going to get into it later, but a lot of these farms that we're doing this on is, low deer density farms, but is a good rut funnel at the time. So if you catch a deer coming through there, more than likely, it's either one, cruising so hard it's not paying attention, or two, it's the buck you want, or three, it's a doe that's, getting chased. I mean, granted,
Mhm.
there are some does that work through, and sometimes we do get busted. I'm not going to say we never do, but a lot of times we don't. Like last year when Matt killed that buck off the ground, it was his buck was the that he killed was the first deer that walked by him. So it's
Mhm.
just what however it works out. But a lot of times, no, we don't get busted.
And when you guys are hunting in the ground, is that primarily peak what most people would consider peak rut, or is that? I mean, you guys have killed in late season too, or gun season, which I kind of lump
Yeah,
into late season.
yeah. I mean, with a gun, I don't necessarily. Yes, it's still killing on the ground, but it's not as
A little bit different.
not as intimate as you want to call, with a bow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the the earliest I think we've killed one is November 1st. So you're looking at rut, but
Hmm.
late the with a gun or with a bow, the last deer we killed on the ground was the day after, either Thanksgiving or the day after. I don't remember. So yeah, you're looking at rut basically. That's the tail end where the bucks are really starting to travel to look for that last doe.
Hmm. And so you mentioned dragging a camera around the last however many years. Is that are you guys still dragging a camera around, or does it feel a little liberating just to go a little bit off the grid from
We
having
we're
a pressure of dragging a camera around, or you just tell me?
we're not filming anymore, uh, just because our families just started to grow, and it was just taking some time away from the family. Matt's got 2 kids, and I've got a son now, and it's just time to step back, and family is always more important than the other stuff. So it was just time to step away from it. But yeah, it's an adjustment. We did still hunt together, probably a handful or more times, just because if we didn't feel like going by ourselves, we just were like, hey, I don't know, let's just go sit with you today. And I did
Hmm.
film. I did take a camera probably 5 or 6 times. We were trying to get Matt's son his first deer, and we just decided just wanted to film it just for the memories.
Yeah,
But yeah, not filming anymore.
yeah. And so I I've self filmed like I can count on one hand how many times I've tried that, and I'm like, forget this. This is as
Hmm.
I feel
That's
sometimes it takes away from it. I feel like sometimes it takes away from it, but it takes away from it in the moment of being fluid. But it
yeah,
doesn't take away from the fact that you can go back and relive that moment a million times over.
exactly. The that was the best circumstance for me. I never self filmed. I tried one time, and I really wanted to kill a deer. I'd probably never been more attached to this deer than any other deer in my life. And I was like, I've got to get him killed. Well, Matt had to work and I was off for the day, and I was like, I'm gonna go. It was the only time I'd ever self-filmed, and that deer comes right through the food plot chasing the doe, and I'm messing with the camera and I can't get him stopped, and it infuriated me. And I knew I could have probably gotten him killed about 100 yards down the way if I'd have just packed up and went down there. He ended up on our cameras. He ended up coming back through and like stopped right in front of my tree stand, looked around, and was like, just basically waiting for the shot. But where I was in a blind because I thought, well, this is the best circumstance for me. I don't, I can have everything spread out and conceal my movement, and it didn't work, and it just really irritated me. So I was like, never doing it again. So then I know that I lost opportunities on bucks because I just refused to self film. So not filming now, I have more opportunity to go hunting. Whether if I get off early from work, I don't have to worry about, Matt's still working. If I want to go hunt, I just, go down. And before I just, nope, go home, do stuff around the house, work out, whatever. So yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. I have the utmost respect for anyone that self
Yeah,
films
I
or
do
films in
too.
general, because
Absolutely.
it is not easy. And I think
Self filming
I,
is,
yeah, I always get a kick when people will kind of like rag in the comments on someone that self filmed to hunt and maybe they didn't have the shot perfectly in frame. It's like I don't think they realize how
no,
challenging that
it
is to
is,
do all
it's
on the fly by yourself.
very, very hard, very hard. And yeah, if you want to have a challenge, do that, because that is a challenge.
Yeah, 100%. And so, it's September now, and people are super excited for whitetail season. And a lot of those people may be excited because they had giant velvet bucks on camera. And maybe some guys that are less excited didn't have as good of a summer trail camera inventory. So, what we were talking about this earlier, but what's your thought process on a guy that's sitting here right now? His buddy already sent him 5 Pope and Young bucks, and he's like, "Man, I haven't had one yet." What do you tell that guy?
Don't worry about it. A lot of people, not all of them, but a lot of my friends are texting me, I don't have a deer to chase yet. I don't have a deer. Don't worry about it. It's historical data on trail cameras for deer out of velvet, in season, is way more important than a deer in velvet that you can't hunt in Illinois. Now, in Kentucky or the states that are open already, different story. But the states that open October 1, 99% of the time, you are not going to kill that deer on that pattern he's on right now. So it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
To me,
Okay,
I
so
mean,
yeah,
that's just my opinion.
yeah, and I think there's certainly examples where I know people that end up killing a buck that they had on velvet, and that deer just had a
Sure.
tight range, or they had a larger farm to access. But for a lot of guys hunting in chopped up country, I think that's refreshing to hear that it's okay not to be nervous
Yeah.
yet. If we get to the end of October and you're still
Deer,
saying that, time
deer,
to relocate.
deer travel. I mean, I know right now that I'm going to have several deer that I don't have yet, just because I know they survived, and I have the historical data of the past year or multiple years, 2 years, 3 years history. They always come back. Not worried about it. It's not time to stress out yet. So just don't panic. It's the biggest thing.
That's okay. You heard it here. Don't panic yet. And I think that's really important. I think so many people talk about historical data, and it sounds like you guys have had a lot of success with keeping tabs on multiple years history of a buck. When does he show up? What time frame or range he's most killable?
Definitely.
So explain that for someone that maybe has a buck in mind, like, oh, I remember this year, he might have been 3 or 4, and he's going to be around this year. He might be 4 or 5, and I think I want to try to kill him. So what do you tell that person that's thinking, okay, how do I develop a plan here?
Yeah. So you've got your data of last year, or the year before. Okay, this deer was here. I'll just use an example of the deer that I have. So in, let's see, 2021, this deer just showed up at our farm and rutted there on a small 19-acre place. So it's not big, 19 acres. He was only a 3-year-old, and actually, one of our good buddies ended up and passed him, and he was there all year. Didn't find his sheds. anything like that. So we're like, okay, wonder what he's going to look like next year. So um, the next year, 2022 falls. Last year rolls around, and we're driving out through the field or scouting, I can't remember, and we see this deer, and it's him, and he's just laying out in the middle of literally laying out in the middle of this bean field with a couple does, and it's like, well, there he is, but he's a half mile from our farm, and he actually ends up and goes to our to the neighbors and spends some time there and ends up in another farm and then is there for like a day and heads back down to that 19-acre place and was there all year. And this time we did find his sheds and he's doing here. We've got one trail camera picture of him, hasn't showed up since. But I know Rut, he's going to be down there in that 19 acres and running it. So
yeah, I think that's such a critical thing to think of and not get down and out. And I think it's just when you're just thinking, when is my opportunity going to be, and how do I execute when I get the opportunity? Where do I need to be? What are the pinches where he's most likely to be?
Look back on your, if you run cell cams, look back at your mobile app and just scroll through the 100,000 pictures you already have of every other deer and try and find those dates. Or if you have, regular cameras, go back through in that deer's folder and look and, okay, he showed up on October 27th and was here through November 15th. I've got, okay, now in your head, I've got 3 weeks, give or take to, there's my opportunity, make the best of it. And it's not saying that the deer won't show up early or he won't stay late, but if you've got multiple years of history of that deer doing that, he's going to come back. Because unless, you don't know if he's dead or alive, in this situation, I know this deer's alive. So I know he'll be back down there.
Well, that's exciting. Hopefully it all works out. And so for guys that are maybe struggling right now with getting inventory of bucks, I know it's September, but where are you putting most of your cameras throughout September, October, November, and kind of that key period of when most bucks get shot? October, November, obviously.
Right now, I've only got a handful of cameras out, and I've got about 30 to go. But
oh wow!
The ones that
so you're sitting tight here on cameras.
Yeah. See, I don't put a lot of effort into the velvet pictures, and batteries. You're going to go broke buying batteries.
Literally.
So,
oh my gosh.
So right now, all of our cameras are on like an edge. So like thick timber, and you have a little open spot. That's not necessarily an edge, or it kind of is, but that's where one of our cameras is, or multiple cameras, field edges. We have a camera that is on the CRP field that dumps into, like there's a little pocket of edge in between two CRP fields. We have camera there. There's another camera right off a field edge and where a creek comes through, and it's like a 30-yard strip, and we have a tree stand there, but there's a camera there, and it just pinches those deers down, and they walk right through there. So that's where a lot of our cameras are right now, and that's where they'll stay. I mean, eventually, here pretty soon, we're going to get some scrapes fired up and get some cameras over some scrapes, but still stick to that pattern of edge. Deer are, edge freaks, so that's always a good spot to have them.
Mm-hmm. So with those 30 cameras you're putting out later, when will you deploy those?
We're getting ready to start. I've got some. I slowly over the year just bought batteries. One, a big box at a time. So I didn't all at once, and my wife freak out on me all at once. Just spend hundreds of dollars on camera batteries. But this weekend, I can imagine we're probably gonna scatter them out pretty good and just move on from there. We usually keep a handful just kind of back, and we always have one in the truck or on the bike or something. If we see a good spot, we didn't have a camera there before and we need some intel, just boom, that way we don't have to go take one down from somewhere and get it there. We can keep both spots covered if we find a spot that we think we need to cover.
So of those 30, next weekend you put out 10, 5, 15?
Just depends on really, weather. We're supposed to get some rain, I think, maybe, but just gonna cover it and just don't really have a hard number, but definitely get some out to where we can start trying to figure some of these deer out. I don't have
Hmm.
a farm. We have, okay, I lied. Two of our farms, we have absolutely no chance of killing a deer early. So I'm not super concerned on that. Plus, they're smaller farms. So, and the other farm that we have, we are lucky enough to have a chance, a small chance, but a chance to kill a deer early. So we're going to focus heavily on getting some cameras up there and trying to figure out where this specific deer is coming through on this trail and whatnot.
Hmm.
See if we can pin him down a little more.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I wouldn't. That's an interesting approach to you. You really are not sweating it at all.
No,
you know.
well, I don't know. Honestly, I hate to say it, but I have a lot of my cameras out just strictly for inventory and to
Mhm.
know if the deer is in the area. I mean, and I can't. We have not killed very many deer on a pattern, and probably because we hunt a lot of small pieces, and
Mhm.
you really can't. You can. It's definitely doable, and we've done it, but it's a lot harder, small area or a small piece. 25 acres or less than 250 piece.
Mhm.
So okay, that way if I could get a roundabout age and get an eyeball on him. Okay, this is a deer I want to target, and I know that he's in the area. That's good enough for me to go in there and hunt. Like I said, I can count on one hand how many deer Matt and I have killed on a pattern.
Mhm.
So
So, meaning the rest of them are on specific terrain features
right, yeah,
and kind of
scrapes
time on
and
stand.
yeah, scrapes and just transition areas and stuff like that. And then if we are lucky enough to start kind of pinpointing a pattern of old deer, then yeah, we'll into that. But right now, just not sweating that at all. So
I like the relaxed approach. I think, and probably everyone at some point that is a diehard whitetail hunter, they're all pinched up all the time over every little thing, over every little so and so drove their tractor, like this really silly stuff. But I
right,
think I think that's a refreshing thought of keep a loose grip and be relaxed
yeah,
and go with the flow.
you can I just I tried for years. I was so bound up on everything that I there was a few years I didn't have fun hunting because I was like putting so much pressure on myself to I've got to know where this dude's at and I've got to know what he's doing all the time, and I just I I just didn't have fun doing it. So the past couple of years I've just been taking a step back and just realizing, hey, deer season's not here yet. So when that October 1 flip switches, then I'll be okay. I'll be ready to go, and a few hunts will get me fired up. But right now I just you know even keel, trying to, get some brownie points put up with the wife and stuff like that, and just go into it nice and slow. And then when October 1 and the deer start showing up, they come in and start, everything ramps up. Then it'll be full bore.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Get a that makes perfect sense. Easier said than done. Definitely easier said than done. But I like the approach a lot. And so you mentioned a lot of these pieces are smaller, and I think a lot of people hunt small farms, and I think there's obviously great potential. You guys are a testament to that. What advice do you have for someone? Maybe they got permission on something that's under 20 acres. Maybe it's 5 acres, maybe it's 10, 15, whatever it is. What are some things that you've learned over the years on how to be effective on small parcels?
So I think the first thing you have to do is kind of try and identify like what type of farm it is. Is it an early season farm where you can maybe go kill one early? Is it a rut farm, or somehow can you talk to the farmer into leaving some food stand or getting a food plot in there, and maybe it'll be a late season farm. So you have to identify what that is and then take that approach. And if it's a rut farm, don't hunt it hard until the rut. If it's an early season farm and that deer is in there, get in there and kill him before he leaves. If it's late, try not to pressure it, and then go in there when there's one in there. It just
Mhm.
just you have to kind of hold there's some ebb and flow with a small farm. You have to be in there to kill the deer, yes, but if you run him out, it doesn't take much because he's so small, because it's so small that he could be off the farm in 10 seconds because it's 10 acres.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but in that other kind of on the other, you can kind of get by with a little more on a small piece because the deer density is lower. So you can push into those areas when you need to because you're probably not going to blow out, you know, a bunch of deer because there's not a bunch of deer there.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. And so let's say someone just got access to a piece and they're thinking, I don't know if it is an early season farm. I don't know if it's a rut farm. I don't know if it's a late season farm. What are some key examples of whether it's food sources or anything else that would tip someone off of this might be a rut farm, this might be a late season or early season farm?
just start hunting it and put a camera on it and you'll find out pretty quick. Most of the time, it seems like on at least what I've hunted quite a few small farms and about every one of them is not early, not late. It's usually rut. So you're hunting mostly, maybe real small tracks, timber tract, or it's a tree line that runs in the middle of the field. That deer are gonna cruise up and down if it's a creek line or a tree line or something. So most of the time you're probably looking at a rut farm, but throw a camera on there and or two and go from there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I shot a buck. I think it was 2018, maybe. It was a small piece. There was literally one tree I could hunt, and I shot him on November 3rd. And I had permission in that farm for a couple of years, and it was the same exact thing. Late October to maybe the first 5, 6, 7 days of November, and after that, you might as well just pack up shop and leave.
Those areas are good rut, and then usually first gun season they're pretty good because you're getting some pressure from the surrounding
Sure.
area and a deer, a big buck, or even any kind of buck you're looking to hunt. Most of the time, is probably going to hide for cover, and then you're going to get him killed. So
Yeah. And I had to assume our, and I'm just picturing these in my head, and I'm relating these to some of the farms I've hunted in the past. But I assume most of these are kind of just neglected, tiny little parcels that is just kind of forgotten land where it's just thick and gnarly.
to know, some of them are farms that everybody drives by every day and they just don't think to look at what it is. I mean, it doesn't look like anything. It just looks like a tree line out in the middle of a field. Well, Matt and I have killed 6 bucks. It's a tree line that's 10 yards wide, and we stand in a hole in the ground and we
I
kill
love it.
deer. But nobody thinks to ask because it isn't anything. Uh,
Hmm.
Another one is, let's see, it's the 19-acre place. It's basically overgrown canary grass that's in a floodplain, and it's full of evergreen trees. And it's half a mile off the road, and there's not really any timber around it, so it doesn't look like much. So people don't think to ask about it. I mean, we leased that one, but the other one was permission,
Hmm.
and we
Yeah.
just knocked on the door and he said, yeah, go ahead. And we didn't know we were getting into, and it turned out to be a consistent kill farm for us.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And I think it's, for people that hunt public or whatever else, it's like think of the areas that are overlooked, and it's the same thought process
Exactly.
for trying to get access, or maybe that's even a small piece of public somewhere. But you guys are proven proven that it works. It's not crazy.
Yeah,
It works.
no, it works.
That's funny. And so you mentioned you've kind of transitioned as a hunter a little bit over the last few years. So now last couple of years hunting style, or some maybe mistakes you've made that you're not wanting to make again because you just simply learned over time?
A lot of it is uh, not necessarily like anything I've done like physically. I'm not saying I don't know everything, and I don't know everything by a long shot. Let's just get that clear. But a lot of it with me was my confidence. And I had a dry spell there for a while. 3 or 4 years, I didn't go without killing a buck. And it was eating at me because everybody else was killing deer. All my friends were killing deer. I was the only one on the team that wasn't killing a buck. And it's just like, just eating at me. So I was trying so hard. And when I had those opportunities, because I did have opportunities every year on them, on a mature deer, I blew it somehow, whether it was um, missing them with a gun, or one time I forgot my release in my truck and I had to use mats. Well, a buck came in, I wasn't comfortable with his release and ended up spooking. That was a mess. But my confidence was just so low that I think that's a huge thing. Going to the stand is like, okay, you have to tell yourself, I'm going to kill today. And you can't go in the stand and be like, I hope a buck doesn't walk by, because if it does, I'm screwed. And that's so mentally screwed. You're so mentally screwed up if you go to the stand like that. That was me for like 3 or 4 years. And finally, it's like, poof, gone. I had
Mm-hmm.
utmost confidence because I actually did what I set out to do, like game plan. I killed the deer. Like, okay, what I know kills deer, so that just gave me my confidence back. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
anything other than mentally.
Mm-hmm. I think that's an excellent point. There's so much good information out there, and then for guys that are constantly seeking good information, because there is a lot of good information out there, and then I think to your point, yeah, someone could be their worst enemy when it comes to chasing deer.
Exactly.
And I think your relaxed approach is good. It's like uh, maybe a similar thing like golf. If you're just like gripping the golf club, or like
Right.
you're gripping the
Yeah.
bat, or you're gripping the
Yep.
baseball so hard, or you're trying to so hard to make a basket. And you're right. You just force things and it just doesn't work.
Yep. You
Yeah.
try so hard, everything just crumbles in the heat of the moment because there's so much pressure on everything to happen perfectly. So
Yeah.
I've just
100%.
decided, okay, set back, settle down. What you know works, confident, and it's worked. It's worked.
What happens, and it's November, first gun season has come and gone here in Illinois. You still have 2 buck tags in your pocket. Are you still mentally going to be able to keep that clarity and calmness? I hope this doesn't happen to you, but I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Thanks, Jake. Perfect. No, I'm okay with it.
Not me to put an
I'm
omen on
okay with it.
you.
I was in the boat. I was in that same boat last year, and I'm okay with it because I'm okay eating tags. People have to come to the realization, if they want to kill a specific deer or a deer of a certain caliber, that it may not happen every year. So you have to be okay with yourself and okay with, you know, Facebook and Instagram and everybody to be like, man, he's not a killer because he didn't kill. Well, it's okay, because if you just are okay with yourself eating tags, yeah,
Mhm.
there is a little bit of pressure that comes on. Okay, it's, you know, Thanksgiving, the rut is slipping by. I don't have any food, and yeah, there's some pressure that comes on, but it's like, okay, I'm okay with eating my tag because I'm
Mhm.
after this specific deer.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, like I said, I hope that doesn't happen, but that's just to put
Yeah,
you through
if
the
it
really to
does,
see what you.
if it does, and if I'm freaking out this year, I'm calling you. I'm just saying, hey.
I'll calm you down. I'll say it's gonna work out. Go back and
Yep.
re-listen to this. I'll send you the link.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh,
No, that's so. I want to talk about, was it 170-inch 9-pointer, just a giant deer. I remember dropping my deer off at the taxidermist, and that deer just stood out amongst all the, like. There's a giant rack, top and bottom of just probably 40, 50 antlers, and that buck just stood out because I mean, 170-inch 9-pointer is ginormous, and just walk through that story in terms of the history. Was this one of the small farm pieces? And just I want to hear the story.
it's a wild story. Uh, we had some history with that deer, and and not a lot. I mean, a couple years, but like no trail camera picture history, like one sighting 2 years before. And so I killed him in 2020, 2021. And we'll back up like 2019 that he showed up on our cameras. And he was for what we thought was a 2.5-year-old nine, was impressive looking. I mean, he had big brow tines, pretty good frame. And I'm like, man, this thing's nice. I mean, he was probably like 130 inch 2.5-year-old. I'm like, this deer is going to be sweet. Like, I hope he doesn't get killed. And we saw him, we did see him like 2 or 3 times around the rut. And then Matt ended up killing the deer we called Fade sometime in January or December. Fade and that deer come across the road the night before together, and they didn't come up in the field. And the next night we went right back in that blind, moved the blind, went right back in it, and Fade come up and Matt shot him with a bow. And we didn't see that deer at all in 2020. And we hunted that farm religiously because Matt was really hot after another deer. And so he wasn't in there. We had like 4 or 5 pictures of him all year long, just real sporadic, like one in October and one here. And like the last picture was like late December, and then nothing. So, and he was, again, like 145-inch nine, just a really good deer. And I don't even know. We put cameras out, and it was like either late September or just first part of October. I was working and Matt was off or something, pulled cameras, and he calls me. He's like, "You're never going to believe this." I thought, what? He sends me a picture, and I'm like, my jaw dropped in the truck, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I mean, the deer exploded. He's like mid 70s. And I'm like, what happened? And so I'm like, okay, that's the deer I want to hunt. And I'm probably never going to see him, never going to kill him, but I really like that deer. And Matt was still hot after this other deer.
Yeah, prime example here that you guys saw him late September, early October, and there you go. Your season was made. You found your target then. Perfect example of this.
So he shows up on one sequence of pictures and like gone again. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, we had other deer, and I'm like, I wasn't going to get, super, tuned up on this deer. He just wasn't there. Historical data. So whatever. He did come in there a couple other times, hit some scrapes, and just back out, and it was November 11th. I was on vacation. It was my first day of vacation, and it was a windy, super windy west wind. And Matt and I were going into this piece. It's a weird farm. It's like 80 acres, but it hunts like 240s. And even then, we only hunt half of that. So hunts like 220s, because we basically leave the back half of it just sanctuary. And then there's a creek that literally runs down the middle of the property. And for whatever reason, the deer just stay away from each other. And sometimes they cross the creek, even in the rut. Like, we won't get deer on, the south side of the creek if they're on the north side, or vice versa. So this deer was staying on the north side of the creek. And when he was in there, like the 3 times, and I was in there, actually, Matt was hunting a deer on the south side of the creek. And I was like, I'm not going over there. He's like super tuned up on this buck. And I was like, it was my turn to hunt. I was like, I don't even want to go over there because I don't want to see him. So I was in there after basically a bully 10-pointer. He was like 115 inches, 120 inch 10. And we just need to get him out of there. And I was in there after him, and we were there that morning. We sat, and we saw like 3 does, and we sat there till like 10:30, and hindsight 2020, should have stayed in there, but we had stuff to do. Matt had to take his dog to the vet, had to take his son to school, and he'd been hunting hard, and he just decided, well, I'm just going to get some groceries for the house, while I'm out. And so I just went with him because, again, I do not sell film. So I was like, I'm just going to go with you. I'll just run these errands with you. Like, we'll be fine. Well, we got back a little later than expected. I was dressed because he ran one errand without me, and I was dressed. And all he had to do was run inside, get dressed, and it takes us like 6 minutes to get to the property from his house. So we got to the property at like 3:30. I mean, super late. But mind you, we were filming at the time. We left everything in the tree, like book bags, my bow, the camera, everything was set up. So literally all we had to do was climb up in the tree and we were hunting. Like we walked out with just the clothes we were wearing, and that was it. Well, we start walking back because we're hunting in the very back of this property the furthest part that we go back there on the windy west wind. We were hunting on the east side of it, so everything that was scent checking that whole half would have to walk by the stand because they could just scent check the whole north side by walking that side. So we just were like, okay, we'll just go back there. It's thick cover. A doe will push it, or a buck will push a doe back there eventually. So we get going back there, and we get probably 200 yards back from back there. Matt just says, I see a buck, or I see a deer or something. And I had my binos and I threw them up, and I'm like, you're never gonna believe what deer this is. So I told him that's like I-9. We just were like flabbergasted because we haven't seen this deer in 2 years, and we've got like less than 10 pictures of him in 3 years. We just dropped down, and we're like, huh, what are we gonna do now? Because he's like right next to our tree stand. I mean, he's like 50 yards from it or so. I mean, it's hard to know exactly, but we had to crawl past him to get to the stand. So we were like, we got to try. I mean, my bow's in the tree. We could have just tucked tail and not hunted that evening. But what's the fun? What's the fun in that?
Right.
It's November 11th. It's time to get aggressive. I hadn't killed.
Uh-huh.
I hadn't killed yet. It's like, yeah, let's go. So we got it. Luckily, this property is it's tall grass. So we just got down, crawled, and it was super windy. So we didn't really have to worry about our wind much, the noise, because it was just so windy. We got back there, and at one point, the creek dumps down, and we were able to get in the creek and like kind of shuffle quickly down there and get up the other side. And we got way past the stand, not way past, 50 yards past the stand, popped up and used the stand or the tree that the stand is in as like cover to like, okay, put the tree in between them type of situation. So we do that, and we get to the bottom of the tree, and Matt's like, I'm just gonna look around and see if I can see him. So Matt just like slowly like just peeks around the tree, and he's like, get up the stand or get up the tree right now. He's like, for whatever reason, 3 does and him are laying out in the middle of the wide open, but they're all facing away from us.
Oh my gosh.
So we run up the tree as fast as we can, and mind you, we have way too many clothes on. We're sweating like crazy, and because it's warm, but it was windy, so we had quite a few clothes on. And I throw my release on. We do a quick interview, and okay, what are we gonna do? So in like 15 minutes, the does get up and feed our way. Well, he's right behind him, and one doe takes off away from us, and two come basically right in
Spooked or
front of us.
just being
No,
silly?
just walking, just kind of like
Okay.
just taking a different trail.
Yep.
Away from us. Like, okay, so the two other ones come like right in front of us, like 15 yards, like a fork in the road. He's like, take the right or the left. Well, he takes the doe away from us, and I'm like, no, don't do that, because we've crawled all the way in here and we've got up this tree, and now this is what's going to happen is he's going to walk out of my life. And luckily he gets over there, and I don't know if he got on her trail and sniffed her and realized it wasn't the doe he wanted or whatever, but he turned around, lost interest, and come right in front of us to the does that were right in front of us, hops the log, and I shoot him at like 20 yards. And it was just a wild sequence of events, just crazy. It was a super fast hunt, just one that you'll never forget. And it's on
Yeah.
film.
Yeah, I encourage anyone to watch that because that is a really cool hunt and a giant deer.
It is.
And just a crazy thing. If you could relive that in a simulation, I don't know how many times that would go perfectly.
I only
the way
needed it to go. I only needed it to go perfect one time. But yeah, that's
darn right.
that deer. He's something special. That's for sure. So
Yeah, that's really really awesome. And I mean, any other key pieces of advice or anything else that you have in mind going into this season that maybe you're doing a little bit different, or maybe some things that you've learned just along the way?
Trying to think anything. Um, Nothing too wild. I just don't don't um, don't worry about what other people are doing. You know, if you know if other people are killing stuff and you're not, it's fine. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. That's why, I mean, I'm still on social media and Facebook and Instagram. I don't post anything. I'm on there just to kill time, basically. I because I'm tired of all the negativity because you can't please everybody.
Sure.
You shoot a 115-inch deer, and people will go crazy because you should have passed it. Well, nobody knows the story. It could have been, 5-year-old buck that needed to go, or it could have been somebody's first deer, or they just got excited and wanted to shoot the deer. Not everybody's a trophy hunter. And or if you kill a 180-inch deer, well then you're spoiled. You're blessed. You're hunting a farm. It's just like you can't please everybody. So I don't want that negativity around me. So I just don't post my stuff. And just
Yeah.
so if because every year I get on Facebook, and everybody is killing. It seems like everybody's killing a buck, but you if you haven't killed one, and that's the most mentally exhausting thing, and it just lowers your confidence. So here we are with the confidence thing
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just I just don't worry about what other people are doing. Stick to your game plan, and eventually, things will probably work out. And if they don't, it's fine. It's just a deer. It's not, you're not going to die because you didn't kill a deer. It's okay. Work out this year. Have readjust your plan to tweak it a little bit, but eventually something will happen for you.
Yeah. I like that. I think at a minimum, you're bound to trip into a deer every now and then.
Yeah,
That's just the
exactly. Yeah. So
whether people want to really realize that or not, and that's more so for people who maybe aren't hunting a specific deer, obviously. But sometimes luck is on your side, and enjoy it when it is.
100%. I mean, look at you go sit in your best funnel on your farm, and you never know what's going to come by. You could have a deer you've never seen before because he's come from. Well, look at the huff buck. That's a perfect
Yeah,
example. The kid never even had a picture of him, and went out there, and he's now he's got the world record typical, or the
for the U.S.
United
Yeah,
States, yeah,
yeah,
United States typical record. So
yeah.
you never know what's going to come by.
100%. And I think that's the fun of hunting, and the reality of it. I mean, that is 100% part of the fun. And I think the other thing too, when you mention everyone, it feels like everyone's killing deer. I mean, the majority of people I follow or things that I'm subscribed to, they're all diehard whitetail hunters. So of course it feels like
100%.
everyone is absolutely shooting, deer every single, like
100%. Yep.
nonstop. And then you talk to maybe 10 of your friends, and maybe only 2 of them had killed a deer yet. And you're like, oh, it's not as bad as maybe
Yeah.
that you think.
But, but yeah,
No, that's
that's where
that's
I'm at.
I like it. I think those are really good tidbits of advice, and I think confidence is key. And I think just I like the approach. I like the approach, and I think people should emulate it if maybe they've struggled or maybe they're putting too much pressure on themselves, and just um, enjoy it. And I think that's something I think every single year. And whether it's kind of morbid, I'm like, okay, I have X amount of hypothetical healthy years of fully enjoying chasing
Right.
whitetails of my life. And every year it goes down one. Every year.
Yep.
So it's when you think of it that way, you're bound to enjoy it more. How many more November 10th do I get to live? How many more?
Exactly.
So no sense to be all pinched up about it, and just simply
Yeah.
enjoy it. And I think that's the key.
Just have something in your head, whether it's okay, I want to shoot this caliber of deer and nothing less, or I just want to shoot a buck, or if I don't get that chance on the buck I want, be okay with eating that tag. Don't just kill a deer that you weren't proud of because you felt like you had to fit in and kill one.
Yeah, comparison is the thief of joy. So keep that in mind this season. Don't let it steal your joy. Um, any bold predictions for yourself for this fall? Now that we talked about just having even keel prediction or even keel
No
demeanor?
predictions. No predictions. Not gonna get that out of me, Jake. Might have one in my head, but I'm not putting it out there for the world.
Okay,
I just
fair
want to.
enough.
I want to have fun, and of course I want to kill the buck, but
Yeah,
it's got to be the right deer.
I love it. Well, best of luck this season. I look forward to following along on whatever you share with the world, and I'll be the first to congratulate you when you shoot a buck this year.
All right. Well, thank you. Good luck to you as well, and thanks for having me on.